Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So we are continuing with the chapter of the cattle and the final episode that we wanted to select from this chapter. And this is a chapter or verses and a section which deals, among other issues, the explanation or sort of a presentation of the amazing power of the Creator. He's powerful over all things, is a theme that has been being brought up again and again and again, and that is one of the key elements of faith that the fact that the Creator of the universe has power over all things. So as is our custom, we will read some of the verses in Arabic, and then we will translate and elucidate, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن الله فالق الحب والنوى يخرج الحي من الميت ومخرج الميت من الحي ذلكم الله فأنى تؤفكون فالق الإصباح وجعل الليل سكنا والشمس والقمر حسبانا ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم. So here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentions that verily Allah is the one, and we mentioned this in a couple of chapters previously, and now we'll talk about this in more detail. Inna Allah falikul habbi wan nawa. It is Allah who splits. Al-hab means, the seed, splits the seed, and the nawa, the pit. For example, generally we call the pit of the date nawa. And again, reflecting, who does this? As we mentioned earlier, that the human beings, and it's mentioned in the chapter known as Surah al-Waqiyah, the chapter of the event. أَأَنْتُمْ تَزْرَعُونَهُ أَمْ نَحْنُ الزَّارِعُونَ? Do you look at that which you planned, your agriculture? Reflect on it. Is it you who are actually bringing it to fruition, or is it we? Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Who's doing it? You do nothing. We do nothing except prepare the land, as we mentioned. We prepare the land, we put in the seed, and if we're religious and if we believe in the Creator, we may give a prayer, and then it's all now left up to the Creator. Everything else that takes place is by the leave of the Creator, and the very fact that we've been taught and instructed how to plant. This is also a sign of the blessings of the Creator, who taught us what we knew not. And so it is He who breaks, He cleaves asunder, He causes the split of the seeds in the ground and the pits, the date pits and others, the pits of the various fruit trees, that come forth. يخرج الحي من الميت ومخرج الميت من الحي. He takes the living out of the dead, what's seemingly dead, and also brings out the dead from what is seemingly alive. In our last chapter, we talked about it. The infant in its embryo stages, before the soul is placed into the embryo, it's a clot of flesh. It's a piece of meat. There's a physical essence, but there's no life in it. And then all of a sudden, it becomes full of life. Therefore, interestingly, a hot topic, in the, particularly here in the West, is the topic of abortion. Can we abort? We can't abort. Taking of a life or not taking of a life. So, in the Islamic tradition, it's a very balanced approach. So one life cannot be preferred over another life. So in the case of an infant in the womb of the mother, so the infant who is alive, mind you, that's a life. And the woman who is the mother carrying that life within her, she also has a life. One life is not superior to the other. And as we also heard previously in a few sections back, that the one who takes the life of one is as though he's taken the life of all of humanity. And the one who gives life, or preserves, rather, and saves the life of one as though he saved the life of humanity. And so to prefer the life of the mother over the child or vice versa, This is injustice. However, until the soul, which takes place at a period of approximately 4 months, before the breathing of the soul, or the angel which actually goes into the womb and places the soul into the fetus, prior to that point, the fetus is not technically a live being. So in, necessary cases, severe cases here, in Islamic law, there is a possibility of abortion at this point, up to this point. After the fetus takes on life, after the soul is placed into the fetus and becomes a living being, then there is no possibility of abortion. So it's neither that side or that side. It gives the, a very, and of course, this is according to divine guidance. It's not, as we said, ethics and morals, if left to the arbitrary nature of human expediency. You're going to have 8 billion people on the planet with 8 billion sets of ethics and morals, everyone according to seeing his own expediency. So it is he who gives that life. Nobody can nobody can take a fetus and breathe the life into it. Even if we have now the test tube babies. Okay, but how is that? You can't create a baby in a test tube without, the male, element and the female element in the test tube. So again, you're not creating something, you're facilitating creation to manifest, but it is Allah again, whether it's in the womb or whether it's in the test tube, it is God that's doing it, right? And once this fetus is placed, and again, it has to be placed into an actual human womb. And then at the point of entering of the spirit, it is only God that does that, And you would have a similar situation in the egg, in the classic example, in the older traditions, is the egg, it seems to be a dead, inanimate, mass, and then out of that comes this live chicken or a live turkey or a live whatever, And again, taking of the soul, the extraction of life, that is a secret that, the heart is beating, the brains, the brain waves are going, then the instruments are showing life, and then all of a sudden it all stops. What happens? What happens is that God himself has extracted the secret of life, the spirit, the ruh, which we have no control of. Even as the soul is being extracted, let the entirety of humanity with all their scientific discoveries and technology prevent, which is also mentioned in the last part of the Surah Waqia, the event, prevent, the extraction of that soul. It's impossible. When it's time to go, you're gone. So it is he. So this is a description of his power. It is he who gives life, and he who, brings life out of the dead, inanimate, and produces death out of that which was formerly alive. Dhalikumullah. That is Allah. That is the creator of the universe. فَأَنَّا تُؤْفَكُونَ. How are you beguiled? How are you perverted, from understanding and perceiving this concept? Just as we talked about with Abraham, explaining and elucidating this to his people. But again, controlled, by traditions, controlled by, our culture and our, and the ways of our forefathers, or whatever the case may be, and just sort of shackled in those false beliefs. So how is it you've been, use the gray matter that we've been given and reflect. And continuing in this type of narrative, Falikul Isbah. And the same word is Falik. Falik means to split. So also here, Allah says the one who splits, the morning. Again, the Arabic usage, it's impossible to capture the eloquence. Falikul Isbah, the one who splits, and it's a kind of a splitting of the light on the horizon, which splits the day from the night. Allahu Akbar. So who is doing that, by the way? Every day we see the revolving of the earth and the revolving of the sun. Kullun fi falakin yasbahun. Also the Quran has mentioned, 1400 years ago, that all of these celestial bodies in their sphere, in their orbit are are orbiting within their sphere that's there for them. All of them, meaning the earth, the moon, the sun. Nobody was thinking that the sun was actually in an orbit, but this was mentioned in the Quran. They're all orbiting. The sun is in this huge orbit, and around the orbit of the sun is the earth orbiting around the sun. So this is all going around. And then around the earth, the orbiting of the moons. And this is all carrying on for now, how many millions, billions of years? Only God knows. Who's in control of all of that? Where's the system? Where's the intelligence? Where is the engineering? Where's the technology that's causing all of this symmetry? Billions of light years of expanses of symmetry moving along perfectly, all in synchronization. Who's doing it? The one creator. So it is he also who brings about, who has created the means to produce day and night. Reflect on that. Who is doing it? He is worthy of worship, he and he alone. وَجَعَلَ اللَّيْلَ سَكَنًا وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ حُسْبَانًا. Allahu Akbar. And it is he who has created the night as a time, a period of silence, of rest, of recessitude, peace and quiet. Just look at this system. The whole world shuts down. The whole city comes to a standstill in the night. Everyone goes off to sleep, goes into reset mode. Who's doing this? Who? And by the way, if God takes away our sleep, and that happens, of course. Insomnia is one of the greatest dilemmas that humans can face. You just can't sleep. It's he who causes us and brings us, to a state of sleep. And it is he, just as we heard in the previous chapter, who brings us out of that sleep and awakens us. It's akin to a kind of death. Our soul is somewhat extracted from the bodies, in fact, and they are returned in the waking process. Who's doing this? Again, the creator of the universe, he and he alone. And he has created the sun and the moon, husbana. So in this one word, husbana, it means something which is in a systemic and in a collaborated way in its movement and in its own, the purpose of its creation as well. Because in the movement, on the one hand, it denotes the movement of the sun and the moon and all of these celestial bodies. And why is all of this movement? And what is the purpose? So previously we didn't have watches, we didn't have calendars, we didn't have, we didn't have all these electronics, to give us the time and the date. But in fact, the creator of the universe created this magnanimous system to inform us of the passing of the day and the passing of the months. The lunar calendar, is based on the reappearance of the month, the reappearance of the moon, of the new moon every month, so that we would know the passage of time. Also, our relationships and our transactions, which are connected to time periods. So this whole system, the celestial system, has been created so that we would be able to utilize, to be cognizant of the passage of time and measure it. And much of our life is connected to, time frames and time periods, and that's facilitated, and that's actually actuated by the movement of these celestial bodies. And that's why the creator created it. It's not coincidence. It's created for that purpose. And he tells us there as such. And similarly, وَهُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ لَكُمُ النُّجُومَ لِتَهْتَدُوا بِهَا فِي ظُلُمَاتِ الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ. Similarly, these stars in the sky, are they just there for whatever? It just happened? Absolutely not. Nothing just happens. There is a purpose for each and every smallest particle of creation. There is purpose behind its creation. The creator has a master plan for each and all. And so, as we know, before the modern technology, guiding technology, GPS now we have, and of course, people were guided on the land and in the sea through the guidance of the stars. And so here God is telling us that he has created all of this primarily so that we, these small creatures on this small earth, these billions of light years of expansions of stars and galaxies and their movement, so that we can easily be guided through, the darkness of the night on the on the land or in the sea. So again, mentioning these great favors and the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He could have just created a clock that would tell us, but he's created this magnanimous system for us to reflect on his power and his favor upon us, using that power in such a magnanimous fashion for our benefit. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back in the discussion of Allah's power and his might. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We're back in the chapter 3, or the episode 3 of our chapter of the cattle. And in these verses, we are observing and we are, exploring, these verses which elucidate and most eloquently describe the Creator's power and his magnanimity. We mentioned, the splitting of the seed and the kernel and the bringing of life out of the dead, and taking dead from that, causing death from which otherwise is appearing to be full of life, bringing about the change of the day, the night and the day, and the creation of the heavens and all that they contain, the sun and the moon and their rotation, and that's all in the service of man, to tell the time of day, to tell the movement of the months and the years and the time periods, giving us rest in the night, causing us to wake up once again in the morning, and again continue in the amazing journey of life in all of its diversity and all of its unlimited facets and mysteries and amazing situations that every human being will face in every moment of his existence, all to be reflecting all of these situations that we pass through and we experience, to reflect on the fact that we are creatures who have been created by a Creator who should be served and should be recognized. And if we do so, our felicity lies therein. Furthermore, carrying on with this narrative, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَنْشَأَكُمْ مِنْ نَفْسٍ وَاحِدَةٍ فَمُسْتَقَرٌّ وَمُسْتَوْدَعٌ. Allahu Akbar. And it is also He, God, Allah, it is He who has created you from one individual. The first man, Adam, and the first woman, Hawa, from one individual, and ultimately the wife was created, and from that came the progenies that went on and now number in the billions. So they all originated from one, and from that all of the tribes. So therefore, the humanity is one basic tribe. We're all the children of Adam. So the concept of racism is totally unfounded, because we're all basically the same race. We're all from the children of Adam. Whatever color or ethnicity or language that we speak, it's all a display of the diversity and the magnanimity of the Creator. Nothing more, nothing less. Not a means of feeling one superior to the other. We're all children of the same mother and father, which makes us all equal in humanity. And so it is He who has created us from one soul, of course referring to our parents, Adam originally, and then ultimately the duo of Adam and Eve. فَمُسْتَقَرٌ مُسْتَوْدَعٌ. And so there is a repository for each and every one of us, and there's also a place where we will continuously abide. And so there's various stages which you could consider, these two possibilities. So one is that there is a depository in the womb where for 9 months, the creation is taking place, and it's a depository for a period of time. And then ultimately its final, destination on the planet, outside of the womb, on the planet. And then from that, on a greater and a more macro level, a depository here in the earth, and the final abode in the hereafter. It can also be, you can take this analogy and place it to the grave and the resurrection thereafter, deposited in the grave and then recreated, and the final abode and the final, destination and residence in the hereafter forever. So it is He who has created all of this, of course. Again, to reflect upon that, this is the point. وهو الذي أنزل من السماء ماء فأخرجنا به نبات كل شيء. Again, subhanallah, glory be to Allah. He sends the rain from the sky, and you'll see the descending of the rain sometimes in, the alluding or highlighting the very, the very physical, being of the water and what it physically creates by the order of Allah. And also the sending of the water is also sometimes symbolical of life itself. And so the analogy of sending of the water from the sky is mentioned again and again and again, many, many, many times in the Quran. So here the mention is, to reflect on the outcome of the sending of this water, which H2O, hydrogen and oxygen molecules, put together, it's nothing really complex, tasteless, odorless, colorless. It's a simple compound of two, gases. However, this water comes and falls upon an otherwise seemingly dead earth, dirt. The mixture of this water and this earth, from that comes vegetation, as we mentioned earlier, of such diversity that it's almost unlimited. How many thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, perhaps, who knows, maybe millions of species of plants, both on the land and in the sea. But here the reference is the water that's sent down to the earth, and we've seen that, and we experienced that. And those who have lived in the desert, you see that there's a barren desert, there's nothing growing, period, just desolate earth, sand, and, desolate earth. And then the rains come after a year, after 2 years, sometimes after 3 or 4 years. And then immediately, within days, you see this amazing vegetation popping out. Different colors, different shades, different shapes, different tastes, different properties, these various herbs and their essence, that are used for medicines and other things. They just pop out like that. Most of them just, without being cultivated, they just come straight out of the earth. Who's producing this? Of course, it's Allah. From the same, there's one clear water and the same earth. All of this diversity comes out. Is it possible by coincidence for anything to come alive after being out of this dead earth? And with that, any form of life is a miracle. And then above and beyond that, the diversity, the unlimited diversity of life, colors, tastes, smells, etc., shapes, etc. These are some of the most magnanimous of the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's power. فَأَخْرَجْنَا بِهِ نَبَاتَ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ, and through the medium of this water, we bring about the plants of all things. فَأَخْرَجْنَا مِنْهُ خَضِرًا. This is very interesting. And from these plants, he brings out, it's mentioned khadira. Khadira basically means in Arabic, a green substance, something green. And so the scholars now say that probably this is a reference to what is known as chlorophyll, which is, the substance which is the basic life of plants. And through this, the regeneration of plant life. So this is mentioned, and of course, nobody would have known that in those days, much less Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was illiterate totally, did not read or write. And he mentions from this chlorophyll, or from this green substance, which probably is alluding to this chlorophyll, is the basis in the basis of the diversity and the procreation of all of these plant life. And so he mentions, some of the things which are salient. Some, of course, nabata kulli shay, of all types of plants, which are, the whole of Quran, and volumes of volumes the size of Quran could not encompass all of those creations. But some of them that were salient and known to the people at that time are mentioned for the sake of an example to reflect. We have brought forth from that habban mutarakiba, the various types of grains, wheat, barley, corn, rice, etc. ومن النخل من طلعها قنوان دانية, and from the date palms. And if anyone has been around date palms and seeing how the this pod, and then it opens up, and then the whole sort of this conglomerate of these beautiful dates just kind of hang nobly and almost royally out of the tree. It's magnanimous. And so who's doing all of that? Of course, it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The dates, the olives, the grapes, some of them are alike, some of them are unlike. Some are sweet, some are sour. Even within those species, various types. And within the same tree, they're not all, it's not like off of the assembly line. Every date is unique. Every olive is unique. Every grape is unique in terms of its sweetness, its shape, its color, etc. They all have to some degree of diversity. So, reflect upon these things. وَجَنَّاتٍ مِّنْ أَعْنَابٍ وَالزَّيْتُونِ وَالرُّمَّانِ مُشْتَبِهًا وَغَيْرَ مُتَشَابِهًا. Some are similar, some are quite diversified and unlike. انظُرْ إِلَى ثَمَرِهِ إِذَا أَثْمَرَ. So look, ponder, reflect upon those fruits when they are, they come to fruition. Ponder over that, right? إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكُمْ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Verily in that are not a sign, is not simply a sign, but sign. The plural is used here. Signs, unlimited signs. For who? For the people who believe. The people imbued with proper belief, for them, this is all reflection and it means for them to ponder over the magnanimity of their Creator to whom they worship. We'll continue with this series, inshallah, tomorrow. Keep tuned, inshallah, for more. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.